I know you may be hearing about this nonstop, and I'm not going to pretend to be the geopolitical expert, but I'm going to provide you some information that might help you with your investments and also to understand the actual forces that are present on this matter in the macroeconomics and world's liquidity, and also for you to understand a little better what to do with your own. So let's dive right in. So first off, I think most people are very concerned about if the Strait of Hormuz is going to be closed or not, or what's going to happen, and if we're going to have an oil crash. So it's always important to see both sides of the coin, right? And not to fall into narratives. So first off, let's just check the data. So of course, on the short term, WTI crude oil is going up. We have some movements there as well. I mean, you can also see if you zoom out that we didn't the principles of what has been happening, and I discussed that in other videos as well, how the whole world is synchronized on a downward spiral in economic activity. So there's a huge story about demand, and if you zoom out, then this doesn't look too much as an oil shock or whatsoever. So things are still okay if you compare to 2022, for example, where we went over $120 per barrel. So far we just need to put things into perspective. But what I would like to discuss today is that if you just check the reasons why Iran could close the strait, it doesn't really make sense if you dive deeper into it. And this is coming from Anas Al Haji. So this is a person I've been following closely on that matter, and he provides some kind of a contrarian view on many of the things that we talk about, and I think it could be interesting to share so you can make your own conclusions on that. So first off, if we see here so he talks about many reasons why it would make zero sense for it to close at all, because it would work against Iran in the first place. So he discusses how the deep shipping routes are more on the Oman side and not the Iran side, and for that, Iran would need to literally invade Oman to block the strait, which is militarily impossible. And not only that, the strait is also too wide for any kind of control only by Iran. And there is a huge international naval coalition involving the US, UK, France, India, and especially the GCC countries, so the Gulf states protecting the region. So they could disrupt it for a few hours before being eliminated, but it's a hard task, and it has, I mean, in recent history, it has never really happened. But a few of the things would be shooting themselves in the foot. So, for example, 80% of Iran's imports, including food, pass through the strait, and all of Iran's oil and petrochemical exports depend on that route. So closing the strait would literally strangle Iran's own economy. And I talk a lot about the euro-dollar system, how every country needs to source dollars for the debt to develop their own country. So it's pretty unlikely that this would create a good outcome if you just shut yourself off the main dollar income, because Iran is not really financialized, right? It's not really, does not provide any kind of investment opportunities for people abroad. It's actually the opposite. So they need to rely more on commerce to source those euro dollars in order to service what they need to do. And not only a blockade would also hurt allies like China and India more than US and Europe, because if you think about it, especially the US, they import almost no oil from the Gulf, so they would be barely affected. Is that really a retaliation? So, and also in recent history, the strait has never been closed, but only subject to minor provocations. In 2018, it was the same thing. In the 80s, it was the same thing. They always say the same thing. Am I guaranteeing that that's not going to happen? Sure, that could for sure happen. But I just need you to have it as a tool so you can think about what this is going to happen. But just before we move on why it might not even be important to create to close the strait, or it might not even matter, because some things can work even if it's still open. I just would like to give you a little bit of an overview, because short videos like that, it's very difficult to explain the whole monetary system and the whole implications That's why we dive extremely deep on our Bitcoin intelligence report, as you can see below on our website on 21stcapital.com. This has been our latest report, and we talk about that as well, about the war and all implications. We have many charts available, and here is where we dive deep and spend a lot of time along with Sina and also she to give you all perspectives and how liquidity is going to affect Bitcoin, the markets, so you have actionable information for your investment. So if you're interested in that, just click the link on the description below and make sure to use the promo code as well for 5% off. All right, so let's go back to our content. So one of the things that maybe have not been talked about enough, and you could put into your radar for macroeconomics, is the fact that the strait, even if it stays open, we have many other risks that can arise, especially with insurance. So I work with many shipping companies. I used to export and import products out of South America to North America. And one of the things that are crucial is insurance on the containers. And they have specific instructions on what is to be done based on transit time and what kind of trajectory they're going to have. So this can create a confusion, because if you have a transit time of 45 days, for example, 30 to 45 days, and you already have ships that are on their way to their destination, but all of a sudden we have a huge conflict that arises, they can't just go back or stop. Sometimes they have to take another path. And sometimes the insurance companies are going to be the ones to say, look, we cannot move forward because coverage is not going to be available. And this is actually a nice tweet from Brent Johnson from Santiago Capital that says, look, they don't need to shut the strait to cause a problem. All they need is for the insurance companies to think that they're going to shut the strait to cause a problem. So it's all of a matter. So this is literally macroeconomics. It's a psychological process, or even a procedure process. So if you have an insurance company that thinks that a problem is good or the coverage is not going to be available, some of those ships are going to be forced to go back. Even though we're not seeing too much of a volume of a disruption as of this recording, things can change in 24 hours for sure. But for sure, insurance companies are going to be creating a lot of trouble. This creates friction. This is one of the big themes that I talk about on this Monetary Mechanics podcast, because it's basically we have a deglobalizing world, and alliances are going to be more local. So we have more friction. So we can't take for granted buying a product from China coming to the US, for example, or Europe, where I am right now, the way that we could think about it in the 90s or in the 2000s. So this was unfortunately just an anomaly, and we are getting more and more towards a world with less cooperation, more friction, and that will create bubbles of higher prices. That can be right, and also there is a huge story of demand. So we have a global system financially that is having some ruptures because of what's happening geopolitically. So this is going to be interesting to see how it affects investments, how it affects flows. But of course, dollars are still going to be needed. Iran needs to source them. Everybody needs to source them, and this is still, the next chapters are going to be interesting over time. But again, all of those frictions normally get compensated with more fiscal, more liquidity coming up. So that dynamic, we have forces that add up, forces that are counterbalancing that. So this is what we need to track on. But for sure, it's not great news for commerce or the predictability, especially when oil is part of the CPI as well. That may influence how the Fed is going to think about interest rates, creating this whole confusion on when the fundamentals just say exactly the opposite, where you expect that big inflation coming up and that might not happen, representing and the price action, as we can see already with tariffs, or everybody was so concerned about that. We see exactly the same thing about the strait and disruptions because of the Middle East. So we have to really separate ourselves from the narratives, but let's follow the data. And of course, let's just keep calm and understand what's happening, especially if we're thinking about the long term. All right. So see you in the next video.